All right, you want to call this meeting to order? Or you read the notice and I'll call it to order.
Okay. Our first application this evening is Walden Woods LLC requesting modification for condition 14 of the comprehensive permit issued on January 16, 2003 by granting a sewer connection permit. Said connection permit to include a street opening permit to allow connection to the sewer main located in Stenbeck Place, to establish the fee for said connection at $5,000 for each of the 21 market rate units, and to waive the fee for the 7 affordable units. The project is located off of Stenbeck Place, assessors map 45, lot 16, parcel 6.
Okay. Good evening,
Good evening.
Kevin. Before we begin, I apologize to you and to the rest of the members of the board and the audience. I did not expect to be here today. I expect to be out of town, so I haven't had a chance to review this document. So if you could spend, a few minutes articulating in detail how it is we get to this point and what you're asking us to do, and then we can get into the nitty-gritty.
Well, the comprehensive permit was granted in 2003, in January 16th of 2003. As originally approved, the project was serviced by a rather humongous mounded septic system.
An understatement.
Between 2003 and about 2 years ago, we were occupied in litigation involving this comprehensive permit, as a result of which nothing could be done on the project, and as a result of which the costs of the project continued to escalate. And Richard Walden got older and decided that he was probably beyond the age at which he was capable or interested in developing this kind of a project. Along comes Paul Morocco, Morocco Partners, makes an offer that Rich accepts. Paul takes a good hard look at the project, gets a good hard look at the cost involved, takes a look at the local politics, determines that the consent decree or consent order that was in place at the time the project was originally approved is no longer applicable, determined that there is capacity in the Scituate sewer system to accommodate this particular project, and recognized as a result of all of that investigation that without a sewer connection, the project could well be marginal, i.e. uneconomic. Comes to me and said, can we get a sewer connection? I said, well, we can ask for it, and that's why we're here. What we're proposing to do is to bring the sewer up Stenbeck Place to service the project. The end street, I think, is Hazel Street, right? And bring it all the way up to the end of our developed portion of the site. At the same time, while digging in Stenbeck Place, they're going to replace the water pipe that exists there. It's presently a small pipe. They're going to replace it with an 8-inch pipe, and they're going to run it all the way up to Tilden, which will create a loop, which the water department presently doesn't have. As a result of all that activity in Stenbeck Place, which last time I chanced to drive it, or attempted to drive it, was kind of a pothole pit, they're going to have to totally regrade, repave, and fix up Stenbeck Place to make it the equivalent of any other good street in the town of Scituate. The way we're proposing it, the developer is going to install the sewer line, the developer is going to install the water line. Those are two functions which are typically done by the town, by independent contract. And that's what we're proposing. Construction of the septic system, depending on who you would talk to, the septic system as approved, is somewhere in the range of $400,000. I happen to personally believe that once it actually starts to get built, the cost is probably going to be significantly higher. The cost of bringing the water is already factored into the project, and the cost of installing the sewer line probably is in the range of $100,000. So by connecting to the sewer, the project is going to save somewhere between $300,000 or $400,000, which is going to allow the project to be an economically viable project. And that's the reason for the request. The request, we've also asked for a partial waiver of the fees. We've asked that the 7 affordable units, which I think we can all agree Scituate needs, be waived in its entirety. And we've asked that the sewer connection fee for the market rate units be limited to $5,000.
Do you know what the fee is? Would be?
What is it, Paul, with
Elsewhere.
11,005 for connection? What's the connection fee for sewer?
We've, through verbal, for 14.
14,000. The water can,
392. 392. 14 times 28.
392,000.
392.
14 a unit.
A unit. Obviously, if we don't get a waiver of the connection fees, from a developer's point of view, it's cheaper to put in the rather ugly septic system.
Costs you $3,000 more a unit. Right?
Yeah.
Septic is, if the septic system is 4 and the tank is 100, you save about $11,000 a unit.
Correct.
All right, and, so the tie-in fee is
14.
14,000 a unit, or 392.
Mhm. And we're proposing 105.
What,
We're proposing to pay $5,000 a unit for the market units, $105,000. But you got to understand, we're installing the sewer line, which the town would ordinarily have to do if it were being paid the $14,000.
okay, what's the, well, okay, is so you're spending 100,000 to do the tie-in. What's the town's cost of tie-in if they do it through 39M?
They have to, it's a public bid,
Yeah.
prevailing wage,
240?
at least.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they'd go all the way through the development, though.
Mhm.
Development is a condominium association.
Well, you know, there's an interesting point here. If it's a condominium association and the sewer department were only to build to the property line, then an argument can be made that there's only a single connection.
Yeah, right.
And I'd love that. If you want to give us a single connection, we'll pay the $14,500.
Well, okay. Anything further before we start asking questions?
No.
Okay. Yes, sir.
We also have to bear in mind that the developer also has to pay, right now what's being asked is for $6,500 per unit for the water connection fee.
Yeah. It's down to 6,500. Used to be 7,500.
It used to be $1,500. So it's also a combination of the two things. And the developer is providing a new water main through Stenbeck. He's going to be most likely forced to tie in the existing abutters as well, because the new water main is going in. The water main that's in Stenbeck right now is an old 6-inch transite. The town would like to see that get replaced. That's probably why negotiations went into replacing it all the way.
Well, there's an interesting question. On the 6,500 per unit tie-in. If you're spending the money to install the main and do the tie-in, and you're spending the money to do the tie-ins, and the water is gonna be metered, what's the,
What's the
What is-
rationale behind
yeah,
this?
yes, what is the rationale? Is it legal? Mr. Bangert is here to answer that question.
Yeah, approach?
Yes, you may, please do. I've seen you there sooner, I would have invited you.
Bob.
I'm Albert Banger, Director of Public Works. I've been doing this work for now going on 5 years. I think perhaps I would address the water question first.
Sure.
Okay. All developers in all projects in Scituate install all of the water mains, and all of them are looped in the town of Scituate. That's a matter of fact. The last 3 developments have gone in, and the ones that are already in before the planning board, and even this one has a requirement that the developer install the water main, and it's a fact that's already in here. The water main and the repaving of the street that would be dug up in the course of installing the water main is already in your comprehensive permit. The connection fee of $6,500 is not for the town to do the work of installing it, rather it's to pay for all the other associated infrastructure that exists and is constantly reinvested in and maintained. And so all water connections in Scituate, post-construction by the developer of the site, the water connections for every unit is $6,500 per unit.
Effectively, all that's to put the meter in.
That's
It's to hook the meter up.
when you get the permit to hook up, you get the meter is put in. That's for a 5/8 inch meter. If a big building is built that requires a 1 inch or 2 inch meter, then there's an extra charge for the meter. But with the 6,500 comes the 5/8 inch meter. Admittedly, the meter is a couple $100, but the fee for connection at the time that this permit was offered, and even now is at, in that range, 6,500. So all units that have hooked up are hooking up with the 6,500. That pays for not what's done within the project. Of course, that's all new. It's paying for everything that supports getting water to this point. Treatment plants, wells, electricity, labor, et cetera. Infrastructure. Infrastructure in town, as you know from previous discussions, was installed in 1903 as it is, the U.S. is failing. And so there's an ongoing reinvestment and rate increases to pay for that reinvestment in this water enterprise, which operates as a closed system financial structure.
So Al, what you're saying is that the $6,500 is not a fee that can be attributed specifically to any work on this particular project?
Right.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you also said is that the ratepayers in the town of Scituate are paying as part of their water charge the money that is being used to rehabilitate the older portions of the water system.
Yep, they're paying for maintenance of all the equipment, including the pipelines, and that's part of the water rate. The $6,500 connection fee is to pay for what is existing. So that's the water.
The existing, I mean, if I just heard correctly, the existing was paid for by somebody else already.
I think the question here is, this isn't new. My father was a builder. When I was 5 years old, he had to put the roads in, he had to put the water supply line in, he had to put everything in. It wasn't, the hookup fee was when the town said, okay, we've approved the building, we've approved the part that comes from the curb to the building, we will put our meter in, you pay us the fee for basically putting in the meter. But it's basically saying, yes, this whole system is going to work together, and you can now use what we have already in the town as an infrastructure.
Yes.
That's going back to the 50s that I personally know of. So-
And the parallel would be, you're welcome to use the town's multi-million-dollar investment in water infrastructure as an alternative to private wells, which are feasible. Just as private sewage is feasible, private wells are feasible. And it's just an economic choice. In most cases, people elect 99% of 98.9% of the homes in Scituate are connected to the municipal water system, some are not. So, the fee isn't a new thing, nor is constructing of the infrastructure and the development a new thing, nor is it new within this comprehensive permit. It's already platted out here. To be looped, by the way. I see it's connected already to
Yeah,
Tilden,
we're
so
proposing to loop.
that's,
Yeah,
well,
Okay,
no, you're
well-
not proposing, the permit is to loop,
Yeah.
yeah.
So let's set that aside for a moment, and then.
Can I make an observation?
Yes.
You don't officially have before you tonight the water connection fees.
That's why I wanted to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought you
mean-
brought it up, that's why I brought it up.
Well, it was.
Well, I mean, no,
You certainly
he
did.
mentioned it. I asked questions because I'm kind of curious about that particular issue. For personal reasons. So let's talk about the sewer tie-in then, because that's really why we're here.
Right.
Now, you've explained to us what, early this afternoon or late this morning, we received an email from the Selectman Secretary reporting that the Board of Selectmen had taken a straw vote.
I'm aware of that.
Okay. And so Al, are you carrying the water?
I am,
for that-
yes. I asked them
3-2
to,
vote?
I know that the sewer commissioners, and they, as having been on the zoning board, I'm aware that is entirely within this board's decision-making power to award all, to become all other boards in order to comprehensively award a permit. But I wanted to get some indication from the sewer commissioners, since I was asked by you as the DPW, I thought I'd go to them, get their position. They made a position on it. They also understand that it's your board's decision to take, so they don't want to create a confrontational situation, but they say, gee, these 28 hookups will eventually prevent 28 other homes from being hooked up. Okay, so they have a policy of not hooking up new developments before hooking up existing homes, but that's just a board policy that is yours to decide upon. Personally, from my standpoint, I'm happy to have new customers for the sewer system. It's an enterprise that is self-supporting, fee payers for connection fees as well as usage fees paid to support this system and the continual reinvestment in it. The system has capacity. I wouldn't try to indicate that it doesn't. We've hooked up, we're in the process right now of hooking up 300 additional homes, 310 additional homes out in the northeast quadrant of town. That's under the plan that was agreed with the DEP to hook up areas that have failed in ecologically sensitive areas. We're hooking up 310 homes there. The cost of those homeowners is going to be around $21,000 per resident, per residence. We've, since 2003, when this permit was issued, we've hooked up 647 other homes in Scituate in Phase 1 and Phase 2 expansion, and then through Rosa's Lane expansion, and through numerous other smaller connections that were made with emergency connections. Those homes have been hooked up at the right price of around $19.5 thousand per residence. So we've got about 1,000 people we've hooked up at around $19,000 to $20,000 per residence. I did a little research on this project. I looked at the pro forma. I'm moving to rates now. So we have capacity. The sewer is 67 feet away from this property line. It doesn't have what we call by rights to connect. It has to be granted a special permit to connect, either the comprehensive permit or an emergency connection permit through the Board of Health. By rights connections are for properties that parallel, that are on a street in which in front of their property runs a sewer line. So the sewer line doesn't run in front of this, so technically it's not by rights. But a permit could be issued for it. and we have capacity and so on and so forth, so let me move on from there.
Can I clarify, you said it was 67 feet, is that, it must come to an invert on the, on Stenbeck Place?
Yes.
The existing homes on Stenbeck
Manhole
Place
there,
are
that
tied in?
connect, all the properties on Stenbeck Place are connected to that manhole, so.
So we're not really talking about carrying it all the way down to
Hazel.
Hazel, or?
No,
It's just
no,
extending
it's
it
67 feet off the property line, and they would need to carry it into for this building. I'm not that familiar with the lay of the land there, but just looking at this system that they were putting in, a lot of the homes would be what we call gravity feed, could feed directly into the sewer as opposed to pumping systems and such. Some of them, I think, are below grade and would need to be pumped into the sewer system. From the, so, I looked at the pro forma and I talked with the engineering people who did the pro forma, and it looked like they were including in the pro forma in 2003 around $600,000 for construction of the on-site sewer system, the whole thing. That same engineer told me that he has just done recently a project like this, about the same size, and he said it cost around $670,000 to put in this kind of system. The fee to connect to the sewer system for all of these units would be $397,000, $392,000. That seems like it's maybe $250, $270, $280 savings to the project, and I think that's great, and we'll be glad to do that. I think it's consistent with what we've done throughout Scituate in charging the fee of $14,000. It's consistent with what other residents, the over 1,000 other people have had to pay since, individually since 2003. And then also considering the fact that basically hooking up to this system, these 28 homes will take capacity that will be used ultimately by someone who will not be able to hook up, who would have hooked up at the fee at that time, which would presumably be $14,000 or higher. So I would argue for, I would certainly consent and encourage or be happy to have new customers for the sewer system and have the connections made consistent with the proper methods of doing it, which I'm sure they would do. But I would argue that it should be done at the rate of $14,000 per unit, which is the connection fee others have paid. Any questions?
Frank, have you got any questions for either Mr. Bangert or Mr. Devlin?
The only question I have is having been on the Board of Health for a number of years and recognizing the capacity question, and the point that you make is a good one. I mean, ultimately, we are going to run out of capacity in the town. Have we done, are there any other projects like this where the project is sort of leapfrogged the existing residents?
I wouldn't say leapfrogged. There was a period of time we were on a moratorium and nothing happened.
Right.
After that, once the moratorium was lifted, the Board of Selectmen had set in place, as part of lifting the moratorium, a set of rules that were followed for assigning capacity or use. I know we had a number of 40Bs that we dealt with that we couldn't hook up to the system during the moratorium and then after the moratorium, unless they followed the rules. I mean, we've been very consistent that the rules are the rules with respect to the sewage treatment plant, because it was such a huge issue for a while there under the moratorium. It's nice to hear we do have capacity, and it's nice to hear it we use, but eventually we will run out. So I can't say that anyone's leapfrogged, and that I also don't remember waiving fees on any of these. It's not my recollection.
This gentleman here has his hand raised.
Good evening, I'm Paul Morocco, the owner of Welcome Goods. And I'd like to address you, sir, if I may, that I disagree with the figures that you have proposed before the board this evening. We are builders, developers. We're presently doing a 60-unit project in Rockland, Massachusetts. We started in 2008. We have 46 built and sold and lived in. We have 12 under construction. We've done 3,000 feet of road. We installed our own water, sewer, bridges, retention areas. The sewer that you're talking about, the present residents of Scituate having to pay $19,000 to $21,000. You failed to mention to the board that it included the town doing all the infrastructure, and you charged the clients a tie-in fee. Here at Stenbeck Place, we are running personally the sewer, we are running personally the water. We are paying for all the material, all the labor. Okay? We're not a municipality company, so therefore our rates are lower than federal rates that are mandated when the town's asked to put in all the infrastructures. This project is a win-win for the town. The project is helpful to the neighbors where it's been approved, to where the septic system is a detriment. We don't want to put it in, but we certainly will. And the thing is, we really want the board's support that, working with the town, that getting all the sewer done and so on. I understand the residents on Sycamore Road are kind of upset that they're not getting hooked into the sewer, is because the town has to pay to put the infrastructure in, any blasting and so on. So therefore, we're taking on ourselves to spend our money for the project to put in the water, in the sewer, and all the mains. So we would like to get rid of the septic system because it shows a 7-foot-high concrete wall that's being, which a few of our residents here are going to be overlooking, so that'll be deleted. It'll be an open area and so on. So as far as the figures that are presented before the board, I disagree, and they are false. We have documentation showing what it's costing us for the system and what it's costing us to do the work.
Well, I think, to be fair, first of all, I thought I was calling on him to answer the question that was before us, but to be fair, I think Mr. Bangert said he was working off of the figure that was contained in your own pro forma. Now, granted, it was in 2003, and things may have changed since, but
Well, can I just say something?
Yes.
And I just want to make sure that you understand. I'm one of those nearly 1,000 persons in Scituate who has paid $19,500 to hook up. And besides that, I had to pay another $5,000 to hook up from my house to the street. So that $19,000 that myself and nearly 1,000 other people in Scituate have paid up does not include the hookup from your house to the street. So, and I don't know how my number fares with anybody else's, but that's what it was, $5,000.
Ask a point of clarification. My recollection from town meeting is those numbers that were put out, 19,000, 21,000, depending on the area of town, had to do with the fact that it was basically a betterment. It was, we're not talking about the fees we're talking about what the town invested in putting in the system to those properties. But a developer who chooses to develop a piece of property incurs those costs, I said earlier, back as long back as I can remember. So I don't think we've got a difference in what's being said here, and I don't think there's a misrepresentation at all. I think that there is a hookup fee, and it's been there, it's been increasing. I know when I hooked up to the sewer in 1983 on a property, I think it was $1,500 or maybe $1,500, I think. So, I know it's going up, but so is the cost of replacing a septic system and having it pumped. So.
Can I make one more point?
You may.
The fee of $14,000 was raised to account for the fact that in order to create the capacity we have created, because quite frankly, as little as 3 years ago, we'd be sitting here struggling whether or not we would have capacity to hook up, because we're running near our permit limit. What we've done is we've established an infiltration and inflow program to go find the lines that are leaking. Many times they're lines that are the connectors towards the homes, and repair those so that we've in fact created more capacity in the system by investing ratepayer and connection fee dollars into growing the system by keep getting the leaks out. And that brings us to this point where we're able to offer the idea of even expanding to the next section of Scituate, the next phase in Scituate, much earlier than ever thought possible, without having to reinvest in building an additional capacity at the plant, but rather by this less expensive method. The money for the fees are going into that, the money for the connection fees. So people who are connecting today are paying for the improvement of the system to enable them to even hook up. And that's been the rationale, and that's how we're going forward.
And that was the rationale, too, of changing the fees for the emergency sewer connections. The same thing, so that everybody is contributing to the I&I program.
Right, exactly.
What does I&I stand for?
Infiltration and inflow.
Infiltration and inflow?
Yes, infiltration is leaks underground of groundwater into the pipes, and inflow would be leaks of surface water into around manheads and other miscellaneous openings. It also would include if people have their roof downspouts connected to the sewer system, that adds a flow. If they have sump pumps connected to the sewer system, all those are illegal connections, so we've had to invest in finding those.
Mr. Demon, just as a point of clarification here, when we determined that the request for the modification was substantial, and so it would be my understanding that in essence here, the case to be made by you is that the modification is necessary to prevent the project as permitted from becoming uneconomical. And so from what we really have in front of us, we're just basically dealing with numbers on a napkin, on the back of a napkin. And I wonder, actually I have two questions. I wonder if I don't wonder at all, it seems to me that we need to have a little bit more articulated analysis of the difference between the costs as the permit was issued and the costs as Mr. Bangert is advocating. The costs as current regulation would require you, and why the request that you're making is the difference between uneconomical and economical, as opposed to just sort of throwing it
Increasing
out there
profit.
and talking about the numbers. I have a sort of a little bit of a handle here on why you're here, but I think in order to justify our making a determination that it is necessary to keep it from being uneconomical, we ought to see a spreadsheet of some kind.
Which would require us coming back another night.
It would.
If that's what the board wants, we'll do it.
Related to that, what is your position on the, I mean, you consented to the hearing being scheduled for tonight, but we are under a time constraint. What's your,
My understanding of the applicable law and regulations is that you were required to start the hearing within a certain period of time, and I've agreed to extend that.
Right.
You can continue the hearing without requiring any, without the necessity of any agreement on the developer to extend time, because this is just part of the hearing. Once you close the hearing, you have 40 days within which to render a decision. So I don't think you need, although I'll give it to you if you want, I don't think you need an agreement on us, on our part, to extend any time.
Well, let's.
I'll give it to you.
I think, nobody on this board, I think I can speak from, we're not interested in extending this any longer than.
No, I agree with that.
And so, and I also think that as we did the last time we had to deal with a modification of substance, we asked Mr. Toomey to review the agreement and provide us with his guidance as to what our obligations were under the regulation. With that said, you know, if we continue you for a month and you are able to provide a spreadsheet within, you know, a week to 10 days, we're more likely to be in a position of getting Mr. Toomey engaged and here next month, so that we're more likely than not to be able to act on your request then.
We would be able to get you the spreadsheet you look for within 2 weeks.
Okay. All right. Anyone else What's the board, does anyone have a reaction to that, Sarah, do you?
No, but I mean, you're going to have backup for the spreadsheet, right? You're going to have some estimates of,
You mean from contractors?
yeah, something,
Paul is his own contractor.
okay. And then don't we have to have, aren't we entitled to have somebody review it just for, you know, from an economic viewpoint?
Well,
This project is an interesting project in the sense that it is so old that it predates the regulations.
I was here.
I know it, I was here too. And the current regulations, and I talked to Mass Housing about this the other day, the current regulations don't apply to this project. The regulations that apply to this project are the regulations which existed prior to August 1st, 2002, because we applied on May 1st of 2002. And the regulations that existed prior to August 1st, 2002 were about that long. They didn't exist.
But wouldn't a substantial change mean that you need to comply with current requirements?
No.
Oh.
No, it does not mean that. That was the reason I talked to Mass
well, this
Housing.
would be a really good reason to get Mr. Toomey engaged in.
But, you know, but let me tell you what I'm willing to, you know, I mean, what you're asking for is you're asking for, you know, the opportunity to have somebody review it and advise you. I don't have any problem with that. I wouldn't have had a problem with it, you know, 10 years ago when we were originally applying for it and asking for the sewer. That's reasonable.
Okay.
I appreciate your comment about how old it is, and
I think I still had brown hair when we started.
I know I had a few more, but actually that goes to the root of the question here, because my recollection is when we first started this, on-site was really the only thing we could talk about
That's
because
correct.
of the moratorium.
That's correct.
And I recall.
We asked, but you know.
My recollection of the board was, we wish we could do it for you, because the on-site system was unsightly,
Right.
ungainly, basically denuding the lot of trees. A lot of things that we really didn't want to do, and neither did the applicant, but our hands were tied. I think we're here happily, and I think the neighbors, I don't want to speak for them, but I think they're enthusiastic about the idea of not having that system installed. I think what we're looking for is some understanding that, is there a huge difference between the two? There may not be a huge savings by putting in on-site versus, or by not putting in on-site and going on municipal. But in the long run, there's an enormous savings in terms of the desirability of the property, because it's not just the neighbors who have to look at it, it's the people on the property who have to look at it. And I've been around real estate for an awful long time, and curb appeal is a big deal. And if you're going to drive on this property and see this mounded large system with a 7-foot wall, even though it might be facing the neighbors, you're going to look at it and say, what the heck is that? And, you know, the fact that we can be here talking about municipal sewerage, the fact that, I mean, I appreciate the effort to try to get the fees waived, but barring a compelling argument that it's going to make the project completely unfeasible, it's going to make it a heck of a lot better project. It's going to be more enthusiastically supported by the neighbors, by the town. The board originally would love to have been able to support a municipal tie-in, and I'm thrilled at the opportunity here for the new project developer to take that initiative and deliver the product we wanted to permit and see done, both the applicant and the board, back in 2002.
There's absolutely no question that a sewer connection is a superior environmental result.
Well,
And it's aesthetic, and we will give you the spreadsheet you want, okay, which will provide the basis upon which you can conclude that a denial of the sewer connection would be uneconomic.
Well, let's clarify that. Let's clarify this. There are two issues here, all right? One is whether or not there's a connection, and the reason I suggest on behalf of the board that we'd like to get Mr. Toomey involved directly in this is, you know, my understanding from my quick discussions with two lawyers who act as town counsel elsewhere and have been through this before, is we don't really have a lot of choice as to whether we permit the connection if there's capacity. We don't really have a choice.
I would agree with that.
So it's really, whether financial relief in the process is necessary, and if so, how much.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's really, I think, where the focus needs to be. So, instead of the back of envelope stuff, we'll have something to deal with.
We'll give you something.
Okay?
Now, before you came here, you must have done the analysis. What's your analysis of the?
I missed the first part of that, I'm sorry.
I said before you came here, with this permit, you must have done the analysis. So I'm curious as to what your profit margin was calculated to be. Boy, just like a lawyer, can't wait to, let me just get my question out. What was your profit margin before you asked for the financial relief, and what do you anticipate it to be with financial relief?
We did not go through that formal a process, okay? Well, the motivation, the original motivation in applying for the connection was that we felt it would be a superior environmental and aesthetic result, and we knew that the septic system as designed was unduly expensive, okay? With that said, the collective body of knowledge that Mr. Morocco and his team have, they understood that it would be an economic benefit to the project and quite honestly might make the project a marginal project feasible, but in terms of sitting down on a piece of paper and going through all of the analysis, that was not done. It will be done in the next 2 weeks, and you'll get it.
Okay, it would, just to put a column in there on what the break even would be,
Yep.
to make the two of them apples to apples?
Yeah. I mean, the current regulations say that if the developer, the pro forma doesn't show a 15% profit, it's uneconomic.
Right.
Developers, a lot of times, choose to build a project at less than a 15% rate of return. I don't know how this is going to shake out, but we'll find out.
Well, when the developer is his own contractor, there's a little elbow room in there.
One would think so.
Okay, all right, well, are we clear on,
Yeah, I just have one more thing. You were touching on it. I was going to ask you what, besides an economic, advantage if you get the fees waived, can you just, again, describe for everybody the other advantages of hooking up? And you started to talk about them.
The environmental and aesthetic, well, absolutely. I mean, what was originally approved was a horrendous mounded system, supported by there's only one way to describe it, a humongous concrete retaining wall facing the abutting properties. And from that perspective alone, I don't blame Mr. Chen and his neighbors for having engaged us in litigation for 10 years, trying to get rid of it. But the litigation is now over, and the moratorium is fortunately gone, and we have an opportunity to correct, okay, what I think we all agree would have been a mistake.
What would you propose for use of the, what was going to be a nice big open field?
Leave it open. Leave it open. And that's exactly what we're proposing to
This may
do.
end up being a construction stage area. There was a proposal for some kind of, during the previous filing, some kind of recreational area, if you will, picnic benches and the like in this location here. We're probably gonna have to fill in a little bit over here. As you see, I've got some grades over here. Fill in this area, but for the most part, probably gonna keep it as natural as possible.
I haven't driven up there. Is there trees on the lot now, or is there field?
There is a tree buffer between our property, buffering the adjacent properties to the north.
The vegetation's very thick and viney. It took me 2 hours to go 80 feet with the shed, so
typical Scituate South Shore?
I wouldn't say that. It's a beautiful town.
Well, I mean, there's briars, there's poison ivy, there's,
I didn't catch poison ivy, but I did
No?
catch the briars. Another added information, couple of things. The septic system would require about 3 pump stations, so there's kilowatt usage. And based on the available capacity at the plant that was told to me, and gentlemen, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about 600,000 gallons capacity left. And this project would take up about a little more than 1% of that, so it's not a substantial increase. I know 28 homes sounds like a lot, but, and the flow calculations go by Title V, which is 110 gallons per day per bedroom. We've got 2-bedroom homes. If you read some textbooks on wastewater, generally an average home averages about 50 to 75 gallons a day. Title V comes up with their numbers because they want you to over-design septic systems and the like. So the added wastewater shouldn't be too much of a concern. I took a look at the Sycamore Ave area. I figure about 42 homes if you include those 3 streets that branch off of Beaver Dam Road. They would probably, under Title V flows, would be about 18,000 gallons per day, having 3 bedrooms per home. So this development is about 1/3 of that. And once again, it's not just Sycamore. I'm talking about the 3 streets that connect Sycamore to Beaver Dam Road. I'm assuming that whole section that connects to the Hazel Drive. So,
You say there'd be pumping stations on site?
for the septic, there would be, yes.
The septic system was above the height of the,
Okay.
so they had to pump it up.
And plus, it's over 2,000 gallons a day, which requires the leaching field to be dosed with pumping stations regardless.
So would that contribute to noise in the development at all?
Probably not, they'd be
Okay.
underground.
Oh, okay.
And
Not
they-
above-ground pumping stations?
No.
Would the topography require, would it be gravity feed, or would it be pumping stations, or grinder pumps, or how would you feed to the main?
I did a pencil sketch of the gravity system, and I was able to get everybody by gravity.
Wow, that's great.
When
The
when
only
a-
tight spot is right around here where these 3 catch basins are. I think we'll just get them.
When, that's great, that's easy to do. To put in the gravity lines is straightforward. When the town is doing a municipal sewer project, what we do is we put in we put in lines in the streets. And we put what's called laterals, which are just stubs that go off to the property line. Then that's what the expansion systems, the betterment pays for, and then repaving the street. These are new streets, so that's a different matter. Then the homeowners connect, as you were saying, Ms. Trees, the homeowners then pay to connect to the system themselves. Sometimes you can take a gravity line from the house to the line in the street. Sometimes you have to use a pump to pump it into that sewer line in the street. But this is going to be a very straightforward, whatever that length is, up to the 67 feet at the end of the street, probably about maybe like 800 feet of gravity line.
Right here?
Yeah,
Total.
gravity mains in that street. You'll put a pipe in the street that's about that long,
Right here?
yeah, and it'll go right on down through the street.
Yes.
It'll be under the street, right? As well with the water lines?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened was also in the previous design with the septic system, parts of the septic system actually extended into the roadway, okay? Which pushed the water line off the roadway and adjacent to what is now an existing structure right here. So basically, right outside
I know.
the
That's a
garage, you have a
horrendous,
water main.
that is a horrendous situation there, isn't it? With all those pump stations, the water line going through front yards, across, near buildings and everything. So this way, when you, with a septic system, or sewer system, which I totally support, it'd be a gravity main and a water main coming down the center of the street, which is the standard way of building it.
Right.
Easy to do, then it's one-time paving. Everybody knows where the water lines are, you're not digging up people's bushes some days in the future. So, it'll be a very easy project to put in sewer mains in this street. So the You put a sewer main in, and then the stubs out to each side, and then come in from it. So I think you have a good project.
It's to your benefit, the water main is
Yeah.
in the driveway as well.
It'll save you a lot of time.
Well, we'll just have to make sure that you're happy with the money end, Al.
Well, I think, what would you say?
We have to make sure that you're satisfied with the money end.
Yeah. I think we've got a standard sewer project here. Putting in sewer will save the project significant funds. It will provide betterments for each one of these homes, and by that I mean, from a real estate standpoint, a home is bettered if it has public sewer versus private sewer. It's bettered in that they're not paying for and have a lien against their house forever for the maintenance of the on-site sewer system. You know, the town now accepts all that liability and responsibility for maintenance of the effluent from then ad infinitum, as opposed to always the houses being encumbered by the fact they've got to maintain this dang thing. They'll get rid of pumps, which cost the homeowners electricity to run. They'll have a gravity system, which is easy to, if there's ever a plug, it's easy to clean. It's a nice straightforward thing, and I think that the connection fee of $14,000 applies, and even with that will be a significant advantage to the project. And the $14,000 is comparable or less than what all the residents have paid and are paying, and I think is fair.
Bargain at
Neil?
twice the price.
I have two questions, one for Attorney Devon and one for Al. The spreadsheet you're gonna provide, will that be a pro forma?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and that's, we really need an updated.
Yeah, we do, yeah, I mean, it's
And
been a
second
long
question,
time.
Al, is that?
This is the opportunity to do
Is that an
that.
upfront fee, or is that a betterment paid over 20 years?
That's an upfront fee,
Upfront, okay, thank you.
and I can help with the evaluation of the pro forma.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd just as soon try to avoid having to get a financial consultant involved and engaged, and, that's,
We've done enough sewer lines, so we're pretty sure what it costs to lay a main. So I can check that for you if you'd like.
all right, anything else from the board?
Just to clarify, so you say once this is installed, if they're allowed to hook up to the town sewer, then the town accepts responsibility and maintenance of those sewer lines? Okay.
It's true of water lines and sewer lines. They're ours. All developers install their own water lines to our standards. They install their own sewer lines, were there to be any, but there's been no developments on sewer lately, or that I know of. But they would install it to the standards, the regular old standards. It's just nothing unusual.
So that really produces an ongoing benefit to the property owners.
Absolutely.
Yes, anybody would much rather buy a house on town sewer than
Right.
on a septic
Right, you have a
system.
problem at night, you call the sewer department, they show up with their trucks and take care of it. Otherwise, you're calling your vendor to come in and try to figure out what's going on with it, and I can't get there till Sunday, and I got an overtime charge.
Yeah.
Whereas, one-stop shopping, call the town. Everybody else seems to, on everything. A seal on the beach, call the town.
Okay, anything else from the board? All right, now, there are many interested people in the audience. Does everyone understand what's going to happen here? Okay? What we're going to do between now and next month is get our town council to confirm our sort of general understanding that
Thank you,
as a
Al.
practical matter, thank you, Al. As a practical matter, it's not a question of whether we permit a sewer tie-in, it's what the financial details are as between the developer and the town. The developer's going to update the pro forma that shows all the financial aspects of the project, which provide the support for his requests for concessions on the costs of tie-ins and betterments. Does anyone have a question or does anyone have anything that they'd like to say at this time. We will be here next month. You can ask your questions or make your statements now, or you can wait till next month. Yes, ma'am?
Hi, Ann Still on Sycamore Road. I wanted to ask Mr. Bankard, or his last name is,
Bankard.
what phase, if we are a scheduled phase, I believe, how soon? I thought our area at some point was gonna get sewer anyway.
You know what your district number is? 5? You got a few more years to go.
See, I thought we were considered like Front Street up.
They can tie to DPW tomorrow.
Yeah, they can,
Yes, call them.
yeah.
They have the schedule.
I actually had a conversation with Al regarding this a few days ago, and he said that they're constantly reevaluating the districts on what's going to go next, depending on what's been failing, and so it's still subject to change, is my understanding.
So get out there and call the town. No.
Everybody
Everybody else
I think he'll tell you exactly that.
Any questions or statements with respect to this project? Yes, sir.
Miss Christie.
Name and address, please.
Lou Chin, 42 Tilden Road, Scituate, thank you. You asked for benefits, and I think I'm speaking for a lot of the abutters to this property, in that we think we live in a very wet, saturated, water-saturated area of town. One of the big concerns and one of the major reasons for the abutters lawsuit was the perceived danger to our livelihood from an additional 3,000 if you use one estimate to 6,000 if you use the other estimate, gallons per day of additional effluent being dropped on that property. We live in a situation where we depend on our sump pumps. We have running water that comes off our properties probably 100 days of the year. My friends here have lost lawnmowers in the mud in their own backyards. So a real concern was what would happen if another 3,000 to 6,000 gallons of water gets added to this area that is already wet. Liz and Frank, you probably have 2 sump pumps running, 3 now?
9 months out of the year.
9 months out of the year. This is what the neighborhood is all about. And so it's not aesthetics. And I don't really think it's about money. To us, it's, we don't want to lose more of our lawnmowers, we don't want to lose more of our sump pumps when we have 3,000 gallons. This, I know it passed the perk test, it just barely passed the perk test. But this area cannot take another 3,000 gallons per day of water. And if it went in with the septic system, those homes on Sycamore would probably lose their septic system, just from the additional water effluent to this area.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chen.
Can I ask?
Anyone else? I'm sorry.
I just have a question in terms of how many people that are here, if we could just maybe have a show of hand, live on one of those tree streets?
We're on Hazel Ave.
Right.
We're just at the west.
They're affected by that.
Well, yeah, it's a tree, yep.
And of that, how many would be in favor of them hooking up?
Actually, let's just say, is there anybody that's not in favor of them hooking up?
Well, I
Yes.
just feel like it's gonna put a lot of stress on the little line on Hazel. I already had to do that whole blue water exercise where they ruined my lawn, trying to line the pipe so that no rainwater would go into that little 15-foot piece of pipe because it was gonna destroy the water system. Too much water was going to the town from my little front yard. Well, they destroyed my front yard, just trying to put a little bit of plastic lining in my old pipe. Well, they were like really worried about that water going down into the Hazel Street runoff pipe. If we have all this other water going to the Hazel Street runoff pipe, is the Hazel Street gonna back up into my house? I mean, I'm on the corner where all of these lines come together, and it's like on a shoestring now. It's not a big pipe there. There's like a water, there's like a little, they're gonna have to do, it's gonna be more than just Stenbeck. It's gonna impact Beaver, it's gonna impact down the hill, where it floods down on Brook
sorry.
Street and on Hazel, because all these,
I'm not understanding. Are you talking about, you're talking about the, you're
Sewer
talking about
line.
stormwater, the
Yeah.
sewer line?
All of
Or the
it.
stormwater drainage?
There's stormwater drainage and then there's sewer line. And
Yeah.
they were concerned about water leaking into my actual, like, the water that goes out of my house. And so they wanted to get the pipeline because the rainwater was too much to get into the pipe that goes down Hazel Ave. So Hazel Ave is picking up sewer water and rainwater to go down Hazel Ave, and that goes down into Brook Street. But with all, are they gonna have to augment
I
the
think
size
that's
of the
the,
pipes on Hazel and Brook and so forth and so on?
That's the whole I&I project. They're
It-
trying to, that's what we're talking
They
about. We're talking
reduced the
about.
water going in, but the pipes out there on the street are like
But
100 years old
it
too, on
isn't,
Hazel.
it isn't so much concerned about those pipes and failures of those pipes. It's more concerned that the ultimate collection of
Rainwater.
infiltration
Yeah, right,
will increase the load at the other end.
right.
It-
But I guess my concern is
If that part of the system has to be fixed, then the town has to fix it. That's what Mr. Bangert said. They're
But
responsible
it's
for
gonna
it.
lead into more streets and more streets, so it's like more water will come out Stenbeck, which is great. I'd love to see the water not get into this big, I mean, well, it's already flooded. I mean, Stenbeck the street is flooded all the time. So there's lots of water back there. But if they come out with this nice, big, huge water line with all this water from new development, and it goes into this rinky-dink little pipe down on Hazel, it goes down to a little rinky-dink, it gets bigger than that. So I think that what I'm trying to say is that can the town afford to give a discount rate on this project when it's gonna cost a lot more in the long run down the road on all the other pipes?
Okay, my understanding of what we're being asked to do is related solely and specifically to the finances of this project
Right.
to the developer.
And if they get a discount,
I'm sorry, just so, because and I'm inviting anybody on this board to tell me I'm wrong, but we're not really interested, well, so we should not say we should be interested, of course, we're interested in it, but the financial impact to the town is sort of irrelevant to the focus of what we have to look at here, which is solely based on what whether the project is financially feasible to the developer. That's what 40B requires us to do, okay? Obviously, we're interested in, which is why we're making the developer go through this drill, to see, what if there is a concession that's necessary to prevent it from being uneconomical, and if so, how little of a concession would that be?
okay, I understand. That's the sort of where I was going, is that I think there will be more expenses associated with maintaining the runoff water than just connecting in, because it connects in.
They can't look at.
They can't look at it?
That's the question.
All right.
But that's
So
why,
sorry.
but that's why we're questioning whether or not they should be allowed to get a discount.
Yeah, I feel like I'm already on the town sewer, which is wonderful and great, but will my rates go up because they got a discount? You know what I mean? Like because it's a closed system, so the people who are on it already have to pay for it. Like if you've just connected to it, if new people coming in pay less to connect in, that increases the volume, and then it puts more stress on, if it is a closed system, it'll eventually, the cost will have to go somewhere, not to the town of Scituate, but to the people who are in the closed financial system of paying for the sewage and water. Like I use a really little amount of water, and I pay a lot just for the fact that I'm connected. You know what I mean? Like I'd have to use 6 times more water than I currently use to hit the minimum dollar amount of what you pay for to get rid of your water. There's a basic service fee. So I understand that it's expensive to be connected, but if other people who are connected after get a discount, this may set a precedent and increase the prices for people who are in this closed financial system.
Well said.
I don't know.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Just a comment, please.
Yes.
Joseph Gordon, 11 Hazel Ave. We who are members of the Stenbeck Preservation Group for 10 years have learned a lot about 40B. One of the things we've learned that as an institution, it turns a blind eye to anything beyond its boundaries without ethics, without morals, and I don't think the town can afford to have a CBA do the same thing. In other words,
you've got a 40B project that involves only, it's self-perpetuation, which is basically, is what you just said. Beyond the boundaries of the 40B, there are things happening, adverse reactions to this project. And I just urge you to take those into consideration.
Well, you know, we'll take them into consideration insofar as the law allows us to. And I understand exactly what you're saying. And for, I don't know, maybe 15 years, there has been some form of initiative or effort to reform 40B, and it's never gone anywhere. There have been efforts to reform the Zoning Enabling Act, which was enacted in 1973, and is a disaster, one of the worst enabling statutes in the country, and it's never gone anywhere. So, you know, as sensitive as we are to, you know, the broader community interest and ethics and the bigger issues that you're concerned about, we're constrained by the language of the law. And as much as we'd like to step outside and feel like it sometimes, we really can't do that without violating our oath of office, which gets us sued and the town loses. So I appreciate your sentiments. I think it's something that we certainly all feel, but we took an oath to follow the law, and we don't really sometimes have a choice.
Maybe it's time for the town to get sued and win the case.
That's, I can assure you, we've made every effort over the years to deal with 40Bs.
Well, we didn't lose it on purpose.
Wisely.
Oh, I know that. I was afraid it would sound adversarial. I appreciate what you're doing, I really do.
Thank you.
Can I change the discussion a little bit?
Can I ask my question?
Well, let's just, I want to give the folks that have been listening for an hour a chance to express themselves.
Yes, please.
I'm pleased to see that the plan aesthetically help our, whatever, makes things better for the people on the uphill side of the project. We're on the downhill side of the project. And anticipate, although we were told water does not run downhill in the previous discussion.
Well.
Now I'm finding out that maybe it does. But we're on the downhill side. I'd like to know the impact. I understand that the sewage will bring the sewer part of the water out through the sewer lines. What about the rest of the water and the impact on the downhill people?
You mean drainage?
Well, there was to be the runoff. The last plan that I saw, there was to be a pit that was going to, a water retention pit that was adjacent to our property, which had us concerned for a whole bunch of reasons. Is that water retention pit still there?
I don't think there's no change whatsoever to
No
that
change,
aspect of
and the
project.
drainage system was ultimately approved by DEP after an adjudicatory hearing.
Mhm.
That's
So
So,
we declared that water runs uphill. That's another issue.
As a practical matter, if it's not before us on the request for modification, there's nothing we can do about it anyway.
Okay, I'm just clarifying that there is no change essentially to that piece of it.
Right. Yes,
Please remind people to please state their name and address.
yes.
Elaine Gordon, 11 Hazel.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I usually catch that, Nicole. Anyone else? Red coat.
Thank you. Janet Claflin, 9 Sycamore Road. And I think I understand, but I just want to put it in terms that, that I make sure when I walk out of the room, I understand what, where we've come to in this. In the request for reduction in rate for the hookup is to potentially make the project economical. And therefore, I think I heard an earlier number, which is that means that the profit margin would be at least a minimum of 15%.
It's actually it's a maximum.
That was a maximum.
No,
That's
there's-
minimum.
by regulation, 15% is considered to be economically feasible. Less than that is not considered to be economically feasible.
Which regulations? The one that apply to your project or the ones that
The
don't
ones that don't
apply?
apply to me.
Okay, so then that's not kind of an issue then, is it?
Well, I think it does relate to my issue, and so my question is related to that. If that at the end of the evaluation of the pro forma and the decision by the board to say yes or no to what that fee reduction or relief may or may not be, if the project is determined to be uneconomical under some set of rules, what's the builder's option or obligation at that point, the developer? Do you have to continue because there's a permit? Where does that end up at that point?
The answer is that if we were to do something in response to this request, if we were to pick numbers that the developer thought he would be able to demonstrate to the Housing Appeals Committee rendered the project uneconomical, he would appeal our action, and we'd end up back, at the beginning, we would be going through the process that was gone through at the outset. Well, actually,
He could
did this
appeal.
go through?
There's no
No,
guarantee
it did
he'll
not go to
appeal.
the, we went to the Housing Appeals Committee very briefly, but what really took so much time was the abutters
Was the
appeals.
appeal, right.
But
So, in essence, we try to arrive at a number that we think is the least that we are obliged to afford him, and hope that trust that we're right.
But a developer does not have to complete the project. But let's face it, you don't buy a project and start in the process and pay for the hearings without the intention of putting the project together.
I just wanted to understand whether there's any, that 15% number stuck with me from earlier in the conversation. I didn't know whether there was a legal threshold related to that or how that worked.
The overarching aspect is, it's believed that the town of Scituate, because of the number of affordable housing units available in town, is in need of more. So the law is in place to encourage that to take place.
Or compel.
Hell. And
Better
a
verb.
developer can make a profit and be rewarded for their efforts to reach that ultimate state of increased affordable housing. They can't gouge the town in the process. And actually, there are regulations that say if they go beyond a certain point, they have to refund it back to the town. It's a balancing act. We're trying to accomplish something good, and the developer is a player in that, and not always an adversary.
Understood. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Dan O'Connor, 76B Brook Street. I abut next to the existing building that's there now, and that's saturated. It's wet, 12 months of the year. When they start digging, where is that other water gonna go? I haven't had a drop of water in 8 years. Now if I start getting water in, who's responsible for that? Once they've broke and gone and made their money, I'm stuck with a basement that's soaking wet. What happens then?
I wish I had an answer for you.
Right. I mean, I've only been up there 8 years, these guys have been there longer. But I watch my basement after every storm and I don't have a drop of water. Now they're gonna put buildings up there and dig it up, and where's the rest of the water gonna go? In my basement? There's a stream of water down my driveway every time it rains. And it's saturated, and there's that underwater or underground retention pond, and that's right on my side of my house where that building is right now.
Well, theoretically, these projects go through a design review phase at DEP and elsewhere, where stormwater runoff and the like is engineered not to do that. Sometimes, frequently it works.
But we're on clay and bedrock. You can't go through rock and clay with water. It's gonna come up out of the ground through my floor of my basement. Static pressure.
Did
Well,
the new stormwater drainage, I don't know too much about it, except that it exists. Scituate new stormwater drainage regs, do they apply to this?
We have lots of regs, yep. Conservation has jurisdiction up there. Since this project was permitted, we have a stormwater bylaw,
Yeah,
but the project's already permitted.
so it wouldn't apply to this? Okay, sorry.
But there were, is it fair to say, hundreds of hours of discussion?
Well, I think the
about
fact that it
stormwater
went to
runoff?
DEP and they have an approved system, that should give you some confidence if it's done properly. But, I mean, it's drainage on a hill in Scituate, it's always going to be a problem. And I'm certainly not going to sit here and say it's not ever going to be a
But you're
problem.
adding a problem, it's never been there.
Okay, you know, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the clock here. I appreciate, all these issues that, we
Tension.
have been hashed over in the past and they'll be hashed over in the future. They are, at this point, our purpose here is confined to the septic system tie-in, or the sewer tie-in and the water line. So, I would like to engage everyone to express their concerns about stormwater runoff and the like, and the very existence of this project, but there's really no purpose to be served for it other than venting, which, is valuable, but you're not gonna get any relief from us because there's nothing we can do for you about it. So I'd like, unless someone has something to offer that's specific to the requested relief that we're being asked for here, I'd like to bring this part of the hearing to a close. Yes, ma'am?
Rose Lockwood, Stendek, please. I just had a question about the permit itself. A substantial modification, does that become, are you issuing a new permit? Does it become a new permit?
No.
If it's not substantial, we wouldn't have a public hearing to discuss it. It would just be, we need to change the plan, we need to change the signage, we need to change. We decided that this was a substantial change, and that's why we're here having this discussion on this particular component that is substantial.
Yes, sir.
Andy Larson, 78 Brook. So should the developer deem that it's not economically feasible to hook up because the fees are beyond what he's going to pay, and he can't come to grips with the town, does he have permission to go back to square one and build the humongous, septic system as previously designed?
Yes.
So, and I'm sure my neighbors that live downhill from the project, just appealing to the board, just say, please, work as hard as you can, because.
But don't be too hard?
Well, yeah, I haven't heard anybody say anything about the water, the water running across Brook Street. If I ask anybody from the board, next time there's a rain or a hard snow and it's melting, come down and stand in front of 80 and 78 and 76 Brook. It's a river coming, and you know what? That water's ending up in the brook, which ultimately gets out to the harbor. A septic system like this design, there's gonna be some leakage. You know that the sewer water is gonna be running through. I mean, there's no way that you can stop it. And I just appeal, it's a smart choice to hook up to the system. I know maybe 5,000 is not the right number, but, please work with them and at least maybe alleviate a lot of potential future problems.
Do our best.
Lou Chen again.
Final
One more
comment.
There was a vernal pool on the middle of that property that was a duck pond for 9 months of the year. That's how wet the property is. These guys don't know it, they weren't there. And Ed, you know it, you've been up there. You remember the
We've
pool.
done hundreds of hours of.
We've got pictures of ducks.
This has
It was
been
a
asked,
breeding pond.
litigated, and.
That's how wet this property is.
Okay,
Can I change the equation a little bit?
if you must.
I have been instructed by my client to withdraw the request for a waiver of the fees if you vote to approve the sewer connection.
That's an interesting.
Why don't you speak up a half an hour?
I tried to, but I was told to be quiet.
And then, this is anticipating not having to come back for.
Yes. My client wants to start construction.
Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah, it is.
We still need to see it.
It seems we've been discussing the
I'll give you
fees,
2
not the
minutes.
hookups.
Yes.
Go.
No reduction in fees. I wish no reduction in fees, and basically, Paul Morocco, I apologize. No reduction in fees, we'll pay the fees, and let us get started.
Okay. Well, that's what your lawyer just said.
All right.
Sit down. All right, so, in that regard, then, that makes things much simpler.
I just have one other question with respect to that. If those of you that are here tonight that are not hooked up on town sewer lose the opportunity to hook up in town sewer if this project hooks up, would you still want this? I'm seeing it.
That's not gonna happen anyway.
Yeah, no, but I see a lot of nodding of heads, so I think that says something about the situation up there.
But, you know, I think, you know,
Someone
it-
prepared to make a motion?
Do we still need to see a performer on this?
No, because they're, no, because
I
they didn't.
understand, but it would seem that this project should have that since we had to open up the hearings.
Well, the performer's not necessary, the permit's already been approved. We're asked to determine whether tie-in is possible. The sewer commissioner, the head of the DPW says he wants them to tie in. And he's ready to pay the fees.
Well, we've already voted to, I believe, we did vote conditions
It's not before.
3, 9 to replace housing authority, 3 and 9. And we voted 36 and 39 already, those have been done. So the only one left to vote is
the
to
only one is a sewer connection.
move to replace the term in condition 14, on-site sewage disposal, to be municipal sewer.
Can, you know, the request asks that the vote specifically include a street opening permit to connect in Stenbeck Place?
And the associated street opening permits,
Thank you.
as per the proposed plan.
Should
Do we
we,
have a copy of the plan on file?
Sorry.
Do we have a copy of the plan that shows the,
I do not have a copy of this one.
We'll leave you one.
I will take that one.
okay,
It was,
Did-
and you allowed the
street opening?
street.
did you want to include the fee? Did you say it?
Not at prevailing fees.
Subject to
Subject to prevailing
fees.
town fees.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Is that going to change,
Is
though?
there a second?
All we do is change a word in the
Oh,
permit.
okay.
The permit's already there and subject to fees and consistent with the plan that's
Okay.
presented.
Is there a second? Did I hear a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion as seconded signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, unanimous vote.
Thank you very much.
Pragmatically, do we need to write a decision?
I think you need to write,
Give me a decision?
I will write it for you and submit it,
Yeah,
okay?
okay,
I'll send it to Nicole.
very good.
Thank you very
I
much.
have one more question before we close this out. I was at the selectmen meeting. They were talking an awful lot about wondering if the developer would finish the sidewalk to Tilden Road. I know that's not exactly on the thing, but
Paul Morocco, Weldon Woods. I'd be willing to do that if the fees could be paid incrementally. Keep
oh,
the fees as they are,
yeah.
but pay the fees just as each of the units is being sold.
Let's deal with that this way. First of all, we don't have jurisdiction to deal with it right now anyway because it wasn't on the,
Yeah.
it would seem to me, since it's already your obligation, if you want to make a contractual agreement with the town to do that, and the town is willing to, you know, if you can come to a meeting of the minds, that's between you and the town.
Okay.
Between us and the selectmen.
They're the
I don't know, selectmen or DPW, I don't know.
DPW, I mean, selectmen are the sewer commissioners, so.
Well, but we're talking
not for us.
DPW
We
takes the
offer that.
fees.
No, but they're also responsible for the, they can make any
Yeah.
decision they want, and they can simply say the fees will come in at a prescribed rate.
Yeah, X amount per unit to be paid at passing, so I mean, that'd be perfect for me.
It would seem that that would be
Healthy cash
something the
flow.
selectmen would be interested in
We do that in Rockland,
discussing.
Mass, so it helps.
I will submit a letter to the Board of Selectmen tomorrow requesting exact.
Okay,
And putting a sidewalk, a full-foot sidewalk, right out to Tilden Road.
okay,
Super,
good,
thank you.
great.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Thank you all very much.
I hope everybody's happy.
Where have been going?
You did well. That was good. I was glad you were here.
I wish she showed up. She opened his mouth at 10 minutes.
Why couldn't he just
Yeah,
sit
but
there right
you-
away?
I saw him whisper. Yeah, I saw him whisper, and I saw him like something. I was like, no, this is important. You know,
Yeah.
this- that was really-
Yeah, I think they saw the writing on the wall on that one now.
Well, the other thing, they
Just
lose
much
another,
better.
they lose another month.
Guys,
Never a dull moment.
we have other business to conduct.
I get my list.
Please go to the hallway. Thank you, thank you.
This one, this is, am I crazy? What's the deal on this?
What's that?
What's the deal on this? He's gotta get a plan, right? Their plan?
What's that?
This is our next. He wants to,
Tony's not here, Joe.
All right, next item.
do you know this guy?
Riley, yeah, we worked in the house.
He worked on your house?
This house.
2017-04.
Thank you, Bill.
Request MGL, check 48, section 6, special permit finding to construction addition to the pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling, 2019 Jackson Street, the dwelling is located at 27.
Okay. Hi. Have a seat. Let the big boys. Step right up.
I think it's the big girl seat.
Never gone to court before. I'm Judith Bucher, 27 Tickner Court,
Okay.
and my builder, Chris Samo.
Neil,
Yes.
you reviewed this and sent them here, so tell us more.
The lot, the existing house is not conforming in one respect, I believe. It's 26 feet from the street. And
Okay.
the addition is, I think, they want to go 29 feet from the street with the addition.
But they would-
Sideline will be conforming. That's it.
If they were to be 30 feet from the street, there wouldn't be any reason for them to be here.
That's correct.
So it's that little piece of pie?
No, there would be, because it's coming into the.
Yeah,
Well,
No, that's not true.
he can decide it.
Yeah, right there.
That's the sliver there is
Yes.
the.
Yeah.
Is the de minimis motion appropriate enough? I haven't used that for so long. Come on.
It's a good thing Bjorklund isn't here.
Really?
Okay, the only problem that I have with what here is that this plan isn't signed.
Right, that was my problem.
Yeah.
Tony just left, too. He was here at the beginning of the meeting.
Who?
The architect.
I think this is another
But-
plan from another, not for this project. You just kind of wrote on your old plan, didn't you?
Yeah, I believe. So you need a sign, you need a signature.
Well, what we've done, we've dealt with this before in a little bit more informal fashion and said we'll approve the.
We have, yeah, and what this is, It's Tony DiNarfio, he's a registered architect, he did do this plan originally, and I allowed the homeowner to draw it in to save himself $1,000, and, you know, we'll get an as-built that it's 29 feet. I told him to put the distance of going back,
Yeah.
right?
Well, didn't we do, wasn't this the usual approach to have the plan submitted
With the permit.
with the permit application?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
yep.
Doesn't really matter. All they're looking for is, once they have the relief, they know they're gonna get the permit.
Right, exactly, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So you're only deferring the expense.
That's right, yes, yeah.
And this addition meets the side yard. What is it? Is it two-story,
Single story.
single story, like a shed roof kind of thing, or?
Yeah, coming off the existing house.
Enclosing a deck off that
That
road.
looks like a really cool deck on the back. Is that a deck or is that a
Yeah,
sunroof?
part of it is.
Is that a sunroof?
No, it's not enclosed, the deck off, I mean, that's the idea, actually.
Well, the living room is.
Oh, is that where you're looking at the back?
I'm looking at the back.
The octagonal spot?
Yeah,
Those, that's the deck, yeah.
that's deck.
We built that.
Did you?
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, so,
I remember.
yeah?
Oh, I see the double doors there, yeah, okay.
With the stairs and everything going upstairs.
And
Worked out
does
pretty
that
good.
look north? Okay, so you're looking towards, can you see the water?
From the front.
From the front.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of you kind of see it down, what would be towards the Pier 44. You kind of look
Right.
down that way, over to the
We
lighthouse.
actually
Oh, I
get
see where you are.
Little
a, the
wa,
lighthouse.
yeah.
Oh, you're right off of Beaver Dam. I
Right.
see. Okay, anybody have any questions? Comments? Issues? Okay, how about a motion?
Motion to, let's see, grant the applicant at 27 Tickler Court, a north side addition, which is 29 feet from the street and 13 feet from the side as proposed on the sketch dated, well, I guess today's date, we don't want to go back to 1991.
Right, not too good.
Well, actually, we refer to the number, what is it, number 9116-S.
All right, this is a request for a finding under
Is it a fine?
48 Section 6.
48 section 6.
That the proposed addition shown on the plan is not substantially more detrimental than the existing dwelling. And that further that the motion will be to approve the application with the condition that a plan conform, a signed plan be consistent with the dimensions shown on the sketch plan be submitted with the building permit application. How's that?
That's
Much better.
great.
Okay?
Well, it's a as-built certified by an engineer.
Well, it can't be as-built because he hasn't built it yet.
Okay, you want a condition that,
I want you to
okay,
see it.
I understand what you're saying.
You want to know what they're supposed to
Issuance
build,
of the permit, okay, that's fine.
what they promised to build.
All right? You understand that?
Yes.
And we've discussed the powers,
No, we're not.
not necessary,
So formal.
the finding.
Do we have water issues?
No, it really isn't. I know everybody thinks it is, but it is
Oh,
not.
okay, that's fine.
No, it is. Because we're not.
Okay, I just, didn't- if we had to have it, I wanted to make sure we
I always want to be,
comment.
it's bugging me for the entire entire time I've been on the board, that, that the regular zoning council come, they want to recite verbatim the power standards. And I don't have to.
Fine. Fine. At one point, we were, I think it was when Mr. Banger was in, our chairman.
It was
It was, had to be done every time. And anyway, I'll second it.
Okay, motion's made, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right.
Who's ready?
Congratulations. Whose turn is it?
It is Frank's turn.
Frank's turn.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Frank.
Thank you. First?
Thank you very
This
much.
is your first, is it?
No, it's written.
Would you like the plan? Judy,
It's up again.
would you like this?
Oh.
You never know that,
Go.
shouldn't have to make a copy. I'm just gonna throw it away.
Yeah.
All right, now,
And I don't know where.
I already threw mine away. If you want it, I'll get it out.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Thanks, good luck.
Borrow your pen for a second, mine died out.
well, if Mr. Sullivan.
Oh.
Is he supposed to
and
be
his
here?
client- Huh?
Do you
I
have a
thought he
model
was coming,
finding?
but I have to talk
Pardon me?
to him.
Do you have a model finding that you can?
I do, yeah,
Salamando? Who we talking about?
thanks.
Walter Sullivan.
Getting the hang of
Oh,
it.
yeah, for Salamando.
Yeah.
Whenever possible, get an attorney to.
What is the number that this is supposed to be? That they're gonna, do you know?
Old Country Way,
Yeah.
that's your neck of the woods.
Well, since if the applicant's not here to discuss it, I don't see that we have an obligation
Is this
to
my property?
take it up. So let's leave it on the agenda. We'll continue it to next month.
That's what's across the street from my office.
All
That's
right.
what this is.
That's you, right here.
That's us.
All right, so, motion, we don't even need a motion.
Yeah, because you didn't
We-
technically open the hearing.
Well, we did open it.
Yeah, so I would vote to.
Move to
extend
continue?
it to February 21st.
Move to continue, yes, yes.
Move to continue the hearing on South River Partners LLC until February 21st.
Okay. Second. All in
Second.
favor? Aye.
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 Aye. All right.
Good.
Anything else, Nicole?
No.
Did you get all your minutes done? Did we vote on the minutes?
I
When I was-
voted on some, I have some that I have to send you still that are done. to review.
Okay. Mr. Limbacher's sitting in the back. He's
Yeah,
got to have a reason for being here.
I like to watch government at work.
Work fascinates him.
Zoning is,
You don't like American
Why
Idol?
don't you come back?
zoning's by
Oh,
law.
you know what? Did you watch last night?
Been so
I
long,
watched for
Bill.
about 3 seconds. It
Oh.
was disgusting. I couldn't take it.
Oh, I love that show. I thought it was awesome last night. I'm not
Awful?
sure I like, no, awesome.
Mr. Chairman, will you
Oh,
accept the motion to adjourn?
Adjourn?
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Okay.
Put it adjourned.
I'll get the off
Favor.
button.
I think
Yep.
Nicki Minaj is pretty